Chapter 12. Hell on Reels. No occultist has had as direct an impact upon formulaic, cinematic presentations of Satanism as has Anton Szandor LaVey. Ritual and esoteric symbolism are central elements in LaVey's church, and the films in which he has had a hand contain detailed portrayals of satanic rites and are filled with traditional occult symbols. The emphasis upon ritual in the Church of Satan is intended to focus the emotional powers within each individual. Similarly, the ornate ritualism that is central to LaVey's films may reasonably be seen as a mechanism to involve and focus the emotional experience of the cinema audience. Sociologist Clinton R. Sanders, quoted by Burton Wolfe in his introduction to the Satanic Bible. LaVey credits the confiscated shower filmmen he saw in Europe in 1945 for launching him on the trail of an actual black order of Satanists, existing not in some medieval witch hunter's mind, but in Germany between the two world wars. The rituals LaVey eventually developed in the Church of Satan utilized the startling angles, conflicting sound frequencies, and disturbing reflective planes introduced in those cinematic rites. Movie historians have also traced the roots of film noir to the same sources, so it's not surprising that the American noir genre of films is LaVey's element. Roughly spanning from 1940 to the early 50s, film noir is best epitomized by films like the original Scarface, M, Scarlet Street, The Harder They Fall, The Asphalt Jungle, and others, with sincere hoodlum antiheroes prowling rain-slicked streets toward ever more treacherous circumstances. Charles Hyam and Joel Greenberg conjured the foreboding intrigue of film noir in their 1968 book, Hollywood in the 40s. A dark street in the early morning hours splashed with a sudden downpour. Lamps from halos in the murk. In a walk-up room filled with the intermittent flashing of a neon sign from across the street, a man is waiting to murder or be murdered. The specific ambience of film noir, a world of darkness and violence, with a central figure whose motives are usually greed, lust, and ambition, whose world is filled with fear, reached its fullest realization in the 40s. To me, LaVey states, film noir is epitomized in a film like The Gangster. It's almost like a surreal stage set. The angles are so disquieting, and the whole feeling is so oppressive and claustrophobic. In the 1981 book of movie lists, LaVey numbers Barry Sullivan's lead role among 10 highly satanic screen portrayals and describes The Gangster this way. This is a small and neglected film. It's almost a lost one. It opens and ends with a satanic statement, and you know that the man, played by Barry Sullivan, is doomed. This is not a Legs Diamond or an Al Capone story. It's a psychological tale about a gangster who is perhaps too cultured and too sensitive and too kind to be a ruthless gangster. He has risen from the slums into the only role he could, into his destiny. Much like Lucifer, the fallen angel, he finds himself a victim of his circumstance. At the end, just before he's shot down in the rain, which is typical film noir, he's castigated by this young girl whose father wants to hide him. She refuses him refuge, and just before he plunges into the rain to his death, he delivers a bitter diatribe. It's a purely satanic soliloquy of a victim in a role he should never have been thrust into. Among the other satanic portrayals on his list LaVey selects Edward G. Robinson's roles in The Sea Wolf and Key Largo as reflective of the essential satanic attitude, as LaVey interprets it. Wolf Larson, in The Sea Wolf, only degrades those who have already degraded themselves. He brutalizes only those who know only brutalization. He preys upon those who deserve to be preyed upon. Robinson, in this, is a purely satanic figure. LaVey adds, Robinson had always wanted to play Wolf Larson from the time he first read Jack London's book. He was delighted to be chosen for the role, but he lost a number of liberal friends once he did. My reaction to the film has paralleled my growing disdain for the human race over the years. When I first saw it, I thought, the character of Larson is too brutal. The next time I saw the film a few years later, I could understand the brutality a bit more. It didn't seem so extreme. Finally, by the next viewing, I developed a real empathy for Wolf Larson. Regarding Johnny Rocco, the character Robinson played in Key Largo, LaVey describes him as a very self-centered, refusing to go under hoodlum, and totally hedonistic. Sadistic, brutal, and at the same time very satanic, and at the end, pathetic. LaVey is so taken by Robinson's characterization in Key Largo that he is wont to borrow a couple lines from that film while making conversation. All through the film, the only interesting characters are the villains. Bogart and Bacall are used merely as one-dimensional, cardboard good guys playing straight men for the gangsters' satanic one-liners. Barrymore's part is written as a crotchety but honorable old coot confined to a wheelchair. Mean old Rocco shows no respect for the man's handicap. When Barrymore harangues Robinson and threatens, "If I could only get out of this wheelchair," rising menacingly, Rocco laughs and replies, "If you could get out of that chair, old man, you wouldn't be talking that way." Robinson actually did a number of satanic films. Hell on Frisco Bay, Little Caesar, The Night Has 1,000 Eyes. Most of his roles had satanic overtones. In his personal life, he was an avid art collector and had one of the finest private collections in the world until he lost it in a divorce suit. Chernabog, the devil in Walt Disney's Fantasia, the one who looms up from the mountaintop during the Night on Bald Mountain sequence, was actually inspired by Edward G. Robinson's features, not Lugosi's, as is usually believed. He exuded the diabolical, perhaps better than any other actor. With the possible expansion of that statement to include Erich von Stroheim. He was an actor and director who cast himself in some of the finest satanic roles yet filmed. The Great Flammarion, The Great Gabbo, and Sunset Boulevard, among others. His arrogance and swagger didn't win him any friends, but he also allowed his satanic sadness and doomed romanticism to come through. Another actor LaVey mentions as particularly attuned is Walter Huston. His most satanic role was in The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, where he was the only one who came out unscathed. He was the old geezer who knew the score, who was nobody's fool when it came down to survival. Walter Huston certainly had finely honed satanic sensibilities, exhibited not only in his acting, but also in this wonderful recording he once did of a sad little tune called September Song, a love theme about a man growing older and developing a romance with a young girl. It was written for him to sing on stage in Knickerbocker Holiday. Everyone was very enthused about Houston in the play. When composer Kurt Weill wired Houston requesting what range he sang best in and what quality of voice he had, Houston wired back, "No range, no voice." The song was written and Houston recites it more than sings it, which is the best way it could be done. He sounds like a misty romantic, saddened that he has so little time left with this girl he loves so deeply. Walter Huston's son, director John Huston, certainly showed satanic vision in a lot of his films. One that stands out in my mind that was obviously a kind of diatribe for him is Wise Blood. It's based on the Flannery O'Connor story about this boy's adventures when he returns from the service to his southern home and eventually starts what he calls the Church of Jesus Christ without Christ. Just relating the story doesn't do the film justice. The terribly detailed characters are what make the film excruciating. They're painfully realistic. So stupid and intense and tragic. There's no one in the whole film you'd want to identify with. Harry Dean Stanton does a fabulous job as a fake blind preacher, with a real lout of a daughter who's borderline retarded. But so are most of the other characters. The worst part is that some people watch it and don't get the joke. They think everybody's supposed to be like that. It's a finely wrought film, and certainly satanic in that Huston was able to portray all these sad, stupid people exactly as they really are. A real misanthropic exercise. It's so realistic, it borders on the surrealistic. To reassure us all that certain established scary actors are indeed what he would deem satanic, LaVey points to Vincent Price, who, he feels, is a Satanist both on and off the screen. In his roles in the abominable Dr. Phoebes and Dr. Phoebes Rises Again, 1971 and 72, Price played the title role of Dr. Anton Phoebes. More than a mere coincidence, the movie's Anton plays dramatic organ and hatches a diabolical plan to avenge his beloved wife's death at the hands of incompetent doctors. In movie lists, Anton compliments Vincent Price's portrayal, in which he pulled out all the stops and created a camped-up essence of satanic characterization. Anton goes on to mention another of Price's films he admires, The Mask of the Red Death. That's an evocative film with some wonderfully satanic dialogue that Vincent Price delivers as only he can. Off-screen, Price is a debonair devil with some truly dark, obsessional aspects in his life. Peter O'Toole in The Ruling Class is another of LaVey's favorite devilish portrayals. This is an oddball film that they try to sell as a comedy, but it's really a tragedy with comedic overtones. O'Toole's transition in the film starts with him being quite naive, a total innocent, and takes him to the brutalizing total cynic. At the end, when diabolically he takes on the role of the devil incarnate. He starts the film thinking he's Jesus Christ, but he's very Antichrist because he's blasphemous despite himself. And, of course, everyone thinks him insane. Then, as he transcends, or descends, from the Christ identification to thinking he's Jack the Ripper, he finds that people more readily accept him and rejoice that he's now cured of his insanity. He's normal now that he's a real rotten son of a bitch who dresses in black, advocates torture, and kills people. At the end, there's that blasphemous scene where he's leading the decaying corpses, singing "Onward, Christian Soldiers." LaVey adds, "The Ruling Class is one of the all-time great satanic films. And it also happens to be one of the best authentic cakewalk scenes I've seen on celluloid, which Peter O'Toole leads to the tune of Dry Bones. The only other film that has as much of that perplexing blend of comedy, musical, and tragedy has been Pennies from Heaven with Steve Martin. This was a real box office bomb because people who went were Steve Martin fans, expecting him to be a funny guy. He's not. He's rather sad and sincere. It's set in the 30s, and he really fits in the era surprisingly well. As in The Ruling Class, the music selected for Pennies from Heaven is terrific. They used period recordings, including the title song recorded by Arthur Tracy, who happens to be one of my favorites. The sets and characters were 100% authentic. It was filmed in almost a sepia wash to enhance the mood of the period. Again, it's a wonderfully sad, disturbing film. LaVey can, and will, talk for hours about films. Their relative merits, anecdotes about various actors and actresses, comparing directors and cinematographers, and has built up probably one of the finest collections of obscure films in the country. LaVey reasons if a movie is easily obtainable from the corner video shop, there's no point in keeping a copy. But he has literally hundreds of cassettes chock full of rare or extinct films, on tape and celluloid, that are not to be found in any other film vaults. As might be expected, LaVey's main interests have always been in the dark, the disturbing, and the forgotten films. He's responsible for reviving a number of films that would have forever languished on dusty shelves in distributors' warehouses. Freaks, one such film Anton resurrected, had to go underground for many years, even though it was produced at MGM as a sort of competitive film for Universal's Frankenstein. Todd Browning used real freaks and malformed people, which disgusted not only much of MGM, but audiences as well. It's purely satanic in that audience sympathies lie with the freaks themselves, and the villains are the straight people, who are the cruel exploiters of human misery. You cheer at the end when the freaks rise up and turn their tormentor into one of them. Terror of Tiny Town, another of LaVey's discoveries, also utilized unusual actors and actresses with an all-midget cast. Not only is it an archetypical Western storyline, but it also contains some good tunes, including one Anton particularly admires, Mr. Jack and Mrs. Jill. When LaVey first started pushing the more unique movies, what many would now call schlock, or low-budget/no-budget classics, there was no underground appreciation of the genre as there is now. I remember when, at my insistence, Herschel Gordon Lewis was approached about re-releasing some of his films like 2000 Maniacs and Color Me Blood Red. He couldn't imagine anyone being interested in those films. He thought we were putting him on. In an entry reviewing 2000 Maniacs for the 1978-79 Audio Brandon Film Catalog, LaVey described Lewis's film as a horror version of Brigadoon, a tale of a southern town which was savagely destroyed by Union troops and rises from its swampy site every 100 years. Because, rather than in spite of its low budget and unknown performers, amateurism transcends into chilling super-realism. In describing Lewis for the catalog, LaVey described his attitudes regarding the whole genre of schlock. The discerning viewer will find Lewis's films to be much more than superficial gore. Rather, an eerie reflection of the repressed sadomasochism in us all that even the smallest voice inside seldom admits to. From Bonnie, Clyde to The Exorcist, from The Wild Bunch to Jaws, fragments of Lewis's kaleidoscope radiate. There's a whole genre of films that are just a little evocative, low-budget gems that I certainly wouldn't call schlock, but that are also being revived as a consequence of more attention in those directions. Director Curtis Harrington's first movie, Night Tide, filmed around the Santa Monica Pier in Venice, California, in the late 50s, is a psychologically intricate story about a young sailor, Dennis Hopper, who falls in love with a mermaid. Carnival of Souls is another richly evocative film that has been completely lost until recently. Producer/director Herc Harvey did industrial films, and this was his brilliant excursion into a world of nightmares. It's just wonderful to see these precious works of art being finally given the attention they merit. With the founding of the Church of Satan in 1966 came a new excuse to film unspeakable rites and wild Sabbath orgies dedicated to Satan. There has been a ripeness for evil characters since LaVey had been thrust in the public eye, just as he himself actualized certain previous fictional characters and lifestyles and looks like Ming the Merciless from the Flash Gordon movie series and Count Zaroff in The Most Dangerous Game. Out of all of the dross, LaVey points to a handful of movies that contain better than average satanic visuals, or that portray Satanists in a manner closer to the truth. The Black Cat and The Seventh Victim are certainly two pre-Church of Satan movies I would consider worthwhile examples of the way true Satanists behave. Val Lewton's The Leopard Man, from a story by the champion proponent of darkness, Cornell Woolrich, certainly has some supremely satanic moments in it. Bell, Book, and Candle at least portrayed witches as something other than ugly old crones. I like the idea of the children being inhabited by the dying Satanists in The Brotherhood of Satan, a film I was unfortunately called in on too late to change the extravagant altar they'd already spent too much money on to rip it apart for authenticity's sake. But most of the post-1966 fare I would categorize, with John Fritcher, author of Popular Witchcraft, as what he terms pop ugh. The deliberate commercialization of the pop that makes people like spontaneously. The same goes for the endless occult TV, movies, and magic-oriented TV series spin-offs Fritcher lists. Bewitched, Nanny and the Professor, I Dream a Genie, My Favorite Martian, The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, The Munsters, The Addams Family, The Flying Nun, Topper, One Step Beyond, Outer Limits. Any of them you see listed in the TV guide, and your immediate reaction is, ugh, not another one. I know a whole generation of Satanists grew up watching those things, so I shouldn't complain. That's why Dark Shadows and The Twilight Zone are two television series I choose not to include in my completely worthless list. I recognize that Dark Shadows, with its positive characterizations of vampires and werewolves, served as an incredibly influential ECI experience for hundreds of thousands of then school-age kids who are growing up to align themselves 100% with my philosophy. It's probably the single most universal thread among Satanists of that age group, an identification with the characters on that show. The Twilight Zone and Night Gallery may not have thrilled me because I'd been lucky enough to be around when Weird Tales was being published. I saw most of those stories in their original form. But people who were 10, 13, 15 years old when those shows were first broadcast were just as fascinated and compelled to them as a personal expression of their own secret obsessions as I was when I was young. I'd be crazy to overlook the influence such series have had on the present and future of Satanism. When LaVey describes the best recent films communicating satanic attitudes, chances are they won't have devil or Satan in the title. And they probably won't even contain scenes of actual rituals in the accepted definition of the word. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, in which all the victims are deserving ones, is more along the lines of truly satanic. Another authentically diabolical film in which I actually got some credit was The Car. The automobile in that film was modeled after one of mine, right down to the rumbling exhaust system and meat cleaver fenders. That's a very gratifying film to watch because, again, comparing the relative worthiness of the victims with the sinister, dramatic quality of this mysterious car, the audience is rooting for the car. Death Wish was a catalyst for a lot of satanic feelings, where the hunted becomes the hunter. But every competent sorcerer knows that that's the only way to survive magically. There was a movie about a young man, Evil Speak, who uses a computer at a military school and a Necronomicon-like grimoire to summon demons to do his bidding. He's basically a bright, well-mannered kid. But after jealous schoolmates kill his puppy, which is the only creature in the world who understands him, he unleashes his demons in their direction to get revenge. Hollywood will no doubt be disappointed to learn that the high priest of the Church of Satan never saw The Exorcist all the way through. Nor do I want to. I did see The Omen all the way through, though. They negotiated with me to be able to film a scene in the original Church of Satan ritual chamber by the stone fireplace, where the main character, Damien, would be formally baptized into the devil's flock. They wanted to fly the boy in from England. They even said they could just bring in a cardboard cutout of him standing there if I didn't want the place messed up. I said no dice. The place got enough curiosity seekers. All the occupants needed was a new rash of tourists looking for Damien. Is there, then, a concise definition of the satanic film? That could be many things, according to LaVey. From a delightful Bobby Breen film to an excruciating Wheeler and Woolsey movie, to an obscure schlock film like Mother's Day or Tourist Trap. Is it blasphemous in itself, saying something no one else has had the guts to say? Are the good guys really deserving assholes who get their comeuppance while the bad guys, Satanists or otherwise, are actually more innately mortal than those accepted by society to be all right? Is the film practically illegal to watch now because of objectionable content? Not just pornographic, but offensive to the status quo? Is it nearly impossible to find now? These are a few of the elements that can make a film satanic. The great satanic films are yet to be made. As with so many avenues concerning true diabolism now, the streets are paved with gold. It seems, though, that LaVey is constantly disappointed by modern films. I've tried to watch them. Lord knows I've tried. But each time I watch a new film, it depresses me, no matter how satanic the theme is supposed to be. I always have to have an antidote right afterwards. A good Marx Brothers movie, or something to rinse out the palate. Modern horror films are nothing more than video splatter versions of amusement park dark rides, complete with spider webs falling over your face. The purpose isn't to communicate anything or even entertain. It's to challenge your audience's nerves and stomach. See how long they can take it. Every day, a great actor or actress or director or screenwriter dies, comments LaVey. Forever. There is no one to replace them. Hollywood has become a very barren place creatively. What a terribly tragic, sad thing to be of an earlier era, trapped in the wrong time and having to watch all these people die before me. All these vestiges linked with the past, who have seen, touched, experienced, who will eventually pass completely from the earth, leaving only the dead, cold, unfeeling fake world. My sins are that I wasn't tough enough. I wasn't low or dirty enough. I should have trusted no one. Never loved a girl. I should have smashed first. That's the way the world is. Shabunka, Barry Sullivan, in The Gangster.